Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Foley, Staff Technical Marketing Architect in the vSphere Tech Marketing team. With me today is one of my colleagues, Jatin, and we are going to discuss some PowerCLI stuff here on vSphere Quick Bytes. Jatin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? How long have you been at VMware? What are you working on? Things like that.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me here. My name is Jatin Purohit, as you have already introduced. I'm based out of India. I work on things like vSphere and PowerCLI stuff, but mainly look into the core vSphere things and then look into the PowerCLI stuff of it. It's been a while now. I think I will be completing my a year into VMware in the month of August. So I'm pretty new, but now I have settled down pretty well into the team. So yeah, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, you've really took the bull by the horns with the Power CLI stuff, and it's been pretty impressive to watch so far. So, what are we going to talk about today? What's on your mind?
So I think it's important to give some clarity about what's happening into the Power CLI space and where we are heading towards. That's another aspect of it. And one thing which I always like is complementing Power CLI with some of our vSphere features. Right, we did had a huge success with vSphere Lifecycle Manager, and I can tell you that we have the complete coverage on things like vLCM. There are few enhancements which we have done on the security part, and then we have got the coverage over there. So overall, I would say the landscape looks good. So we'll touch base on these particular points.
Yeah, one of the things me personally working on vSphere with Tanzu from a
Oh
vSphere
yes.
admin standpoint is some of the workload management commandlets and being able to automate the setup and creation of workload management.
Absolutely correct. So yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the one thing which I always tell people that the distinct value proposition which Power CLI has uh, is completely valuable to system administrators, right? We people work in the IT infrastructure. We have very less exposure to things like APIs and some of the developer terminologies and technologies. But the value which Power CLI bring into the table is abstracting all these complexities and providing a very simplified user experience to interact and automate your infrastructure. You have rightly said that we have got the support for vSphere with Tanzu. So if I'm the administrator, I know working of PowerShell and PowerCLI. Having vSphere with Tanzu support certainly complement my overall system administration as well as the automation experience. So I think that's where the value proposition lies for system administrators if you are using PowerCLI or something like PowerShell.
Yep. Cool. So, is there any particular feature you want to talk about today that's come out recently? I mean, we mentioned the VLCM stuff and the workload management, and we can get into the workload management another time when we have a deeper conversation on that. But yeah, what sort? Do you have any demos to bring or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. But before we touch on things like vSphere Lifecycle Manager, one update which I would like to give is we have worked really hard to get PowerCLI ported into something called PowerShell Core. So let's say if you are the user who loves Mac, Linux or Unix box, then we have got the complete PowerCLI support for all of these operating system. So it's like choose the operating system you want, and then you can start playing around with PowerCLI. It has started when Microsoft announced PowerShell Core, and then we have also started looking into porting our existing PowerShell modules into the Linux ecosystem. And I'm happy to say that there are only 2 or 3 modules which are like which are not ported yet. Things like VMware Update Manager, but then we have got the replacement for vSphere Lifecycle Manager because VUM is now a thing of past. Thing like Image Builder, these kind of modules are not ported into the Linux. Otherwise, you name the module, you name the CMDLet, you can right now start with executing these things in PowerShell core. So yeah, I think that's one of the key improvements which has been done in the recent past.
So with the advent of a lot more systems running on infrastructure, a lot of Macs now running on
Yes.
the M1 chip, and which I can't wait to get a new one because I'm so sick and tired of the fans. But I've seen Raspberry Pis running Linux with PowerCLI.
Correct.
So that's all there as well.
Yes, that's all there, and in fact, you will be surprised. We do have a Docker container, a PowerCLI Docker container, which is basically a community managed container. It has got all the PowerCLI module, including some of the open source module, as well as it has got some of the PowerCLI example script, which is basically our public repository where community members, come in and then share their work along with them. So the idea is now we have PowerShell core supported, and now we have PowerCLI also ported on PowerShell core. You can actually spin up a Docker container and then run PowerCLI within a containerized environment. I'm not sure how you would leverage in your real business scenario, but I strongly feel down the line there will be some strong use cases of running PowerCLI or PowerShell into a containerized environment. So, yeah, as you have rightly said, whether it is a Raspberry Pi, whether it is ARM processor, whether it is a Windows, Mac box, or even it is a Docker container, PowerCLI is everywhere. That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah, I think one project that is actually using the container might be the VEBA stuff, VEBA, the
VMware Event Broker Appliance, if I am
Event
right
Broker.
on the name. Yeah, it's an open source project, but yeah, that's still available.
Cool. Anything else?
Yeah, that's the only thing in terms of how we are expanding PowerCLI in terms of its portability. Otherwise, if we talk about recent releases which we had with PowerCLI, we have got some great coverage in terms of key vSphere features, right? Let me start with the vSphere Lifecycle Manager. vSphere Lifecycle Manager, if you look at its new way of managing your ESXi host lifecycle, it is a cluster-centric feature where not only you can upgrade the ESXi host patches and the ESXi host version, you can also do the full stack firmware upgrade. So let's say if you are running on a Dell hardware and if you have the hardware integration, with a single remediation process, you can also do the full stack firmware updates, right? Which is quite significant in terms of your overall lifecycle aspect of the things.
Right.
In past, when we used to do the VMware Update Manager things, we were only capable of doing the ESXi host upgrade. But having vLCM allows you to do the full stack firmware update. So now how it happens,
pretty cool.
yeah, how it's happened is it's basically a cluster-centric feature. Then it has got something called vLCM desired image, which has like 3-4 components in it. You have the base version, which is basically the ESXi host version. You have vendor add-on, and then you have firmware and driver add-ons, which you can basically bring in and create your vLCM desired state. Now, what we have done is the moment we have got this particular feature released, we started supporting vLCM in PowerCLI 12.1. So with that, the idea is the moment when you do set cluster, which is basically a CMD-led to create a new cluster, new cluster, which is basically a CMD-led to create a new cluster, you can pipe that particular command to create the vLCM desired image as well. So you have got switches, you have got the parameters, which allows you to define the vLCM desired image during the cluster creation as well, right? So as we have said, it's a cluster-centric feature. Now assume that you already have got an existing cluster. You can use something like set cluster and then enable vLCM desired image on the existing cluster. So from creating a new cluster to an existing cluster or modifying an existing cluster with vLCM desired image, you have got the complete coverage in terms of vLCM.
Do we have plans to make an HOL out of that, or is there any blogs or other content that dives deeper into this?
At present, we don't have HOL demonstrating the vLCM and PowerCLI capabilities, but I'm currently working with our HOL team, and soon we will have these particular capabilities will be demonstrated in a HOL module. So yeah, that will be taken
cool.
care.
Yeah, obviously it takes a fair amount of work to get all the hardware and configuration and everything together to actually build,
Right.
a module or even a demo. I mean, there've been times where it's taken me 3 or 4 weeks just to make a 30-second demo.
It takes time. It takes
That's
time.
kind of the job of tech marketing, is making
Right.
it look really, really
Right.
easy.
Just apart from the PowerCLI conversation, you have brought in very good point. When I joined the technical marketing team, I thought the content creation would be as easy as I do my system administrator or any other engineering job. But then I figured out it's a different process altogether. There is a review which happens. There is a review in terms of what type of content you would like to put, how you would like to present that particular content. So yeah, tech marketing is an exciting stuff, but there are no rules in terms of how you approach the TMM role. So yeah, I think
Right.
that's really exciting.
Right. So, one last question for you. I see this show up all the time. I see customers that are running a version of PowerCLI that came out about the time of the release that they're running. So, if they're running, we'll say vSphere 6.5, they're running a version of PowerCLI that came out when vSphere 6.5 came out. How strongly do you recommend that customers upgrade PowerCLI, and how backwards compatible is it to previous releases?
Wonderful question. The first thing is something which we need to understand very clearly. The PowerCLI is basically a client-side tool. So even if you make any changes in terms of the upgrading or downgrading the tool or which version you are using, it is still at the client side. So any change which you do at the client side will not impact on your server side infrastructure. Let's be assured on this particular part. The second thing is, in terms of backward compatibility, PowerCLI does support the backward compatibility of your previous vSphere environment, right? So even if you have PowerCLI which was released in 6.x era, you can pretty much upgrade that to the latest PowerCLI version, and your backward compatibility will be ensured for all the vSphere versions which we have. That's second aspect of it. The third aspect is update. Why you should update, when you should update, and how you should update. I think my recommendation is the moment when we release the PowerCLI latest version, you should consider upgrading the PowerCLI version. Because as I have said, backward compatibility is ensured, and the second thing is the upgrade process is simply a one-liner. Update module, provide the module name, and that's it. It will reach out to the PowerShell gallery, download the updated bits, and you are done. So in terms of efforts of upgrading your PowerCLI environment is not that much. Your backward compatibility is taken care, and then as I've said, it's basically a client-side tool. So it's like you're updating your web browser, right? It sits in the client side. It doesn't impact anything on the server side. And then backward compatibility goes hand in hand. So yeah, rest is assured. I mean, pretty much consider upgrading your PowerCLI to the latest version.
Awesome. Hey, this has been a really great talk. I'll post a link to your blog articles and where we can find you online at core.vmware.com. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it, Jatin.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.